Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel simply is called Discerning What is True. Today is the 8th day of February 2025. I'm going to be reading from a particular book by Bill McGraw, a gentleman that's actually in Panama, who's done quite a bit of research. And this is one of his short booklets that he wrote, and I'm going to read it to you today. I feel like it's a very important information to know. Simply, it's called Forever Chemicals, Essential Information. It might seem like there is always a new toxic compound being developed that we have to be concerned about. And so the job of independent scientists like yours truly is to collate, summarize, and disseminate new information coming out about toxics and contaminants and how to avoid and, quote, detox them. Information is presented here on the history, sources of toxicity, associated chronic disease, and potential detoxification strategies for forever chemicals. Quote, forever chemicals, the name sounds daunting, and these components of products can be found nearly everywhere. For example, they can be used in a variety of things to prevent friction or corrosion, make something waterproof, able to withstand heat, last longer, or more resistant to stains. Forever chemicals can be found in many different products, from cosmetics, that's right, to paints, from artificial grass to foams used to fight fires, and of course, food packaging and clothing. These toxic compounds are used in so many different things they may be hard to avoid. But what really is or are forever chemicals? The proper name for forever chemicals we are talking about these days is propionous substance, and there are many associated chemical compounds, sometimes also known as polyfluorous alkyl substance, or what we call PFAS, PFAS, the short name. As the name suggests, they contain very strong carbon-fluorine bonds, which make them difficult to break down in the environment and more difficult to remove from the human body. Various PFAS compounds can now be found in soil, food, and nearly all water sources, including ground and surface waters. You can't see or taste them, but they can be measured in labs in the United States for about $500 per test for each sample. An important part of the story is that PFAS are big business. The DuPont company has been making products containing PFAS since the 1930s, and the chemicals are probably best known for being an important component for non-stick cookware. Teflon, as it's called. Discharge of PFAS from industry into local environment into the U.S. began in the 1950s. Currently, there are over 4,700 chemical compounds classified as PFAS, and the industry is valued at over $100 billion. The use of PFAS in cosmetics is worth $20 billion, and they are added for water resistance and durability. It has been reported that 72 cosmetics from 4 countries other than the United States and Canada were found to contain PFAS. In 2021, a published study tested 231 commonly found cosmetics in the United States and Canada and determined that about half contained fluoride compounds indicating PFAS. PFAS. Like the story of Monsanto and glyphosate, DuPont paid out $670 million in 2012 to people who claim they developed cancer from using their products that contain PFAS. By 2015, DuPont agreed to stop using PFAS in their products that they manufactured, but by then, PFAS could be found nearly everywhere, you see, and new ones were invented. The toxicity of these new PFAS compounds are unknown. The number of carbon atoms in some PFAS molecules was changed from 8 to 6. In other words, a C8PFAS compound was changed to a C6 compound, and the old regulations constraints were no longer applicable. Isn't that a brilliant way of getting under the radar? That's my pun. Sources of PFAS in the human body. PFAS enters the environment through landfill overflow or from discharge from industrial plants that use PFAS in processing and manufacturing. Standard wastewater treatment facilities have little effect on PFAS, and there are an estimated 200 million people drinking PFAS every day in tap water in the U.S., and countless other consulting PFAS in processed foods and fish. Some scientific sources of information list water as the main source of PFAS toxicity in the human body. Some sources list processed foods and other site fish as being the main source. This, of course, depends on food choices and an understanding of the importance of water filtration. Obviously, if you are using PFAS containing cosmetic intensity every day, then your main source of PFAS toxicity may be from using makeup. Fruits, vegetables, and grains are likely a minor source of PFAS toxicity, although plants can absorb PFAS, and vegetables and fruits will absorb more than grains depending on the concentration of PFAS in soils. This is considered a minor input as plants are low on the food chain, you see, which means plants will not accumulate as many toxins as organisms higher on the food chain, such as herbivores and carnivores. And second point that needs to be made here is that PFAS in soils are mostly from local sources, meaning that agriculture should not be located near industry using PFAS. Although most scientific studies measure PFAS in water and correlate it higher levels with various forms of disease, according to a paper published in the Journal of Agriculture and Food Chemistry in 2017. The main avenue of entry of PFAS into the body is from food. Packaged foods are reported to be the biggest sources, with pizza boxes, fast food wrappers, and microwave popcorn typically mentioned in various articles. Avoidance of processed food is advised, as heavy metals, oxidized compounds, and other chemicals are found in many types of cheap food that has a long shelf life. That's the reason why it's a long shelf life. It keeps it, quote unquote, from spoiling. So, you know, anything in a box or in a bag or whatever is not really food anymore, you see. That's my pun. Perhaps the biggest concern that very few people know about is the level of PFAS in fish. A study published in the journal Environmental Research 2017 stated that the biggest source of PFAS in the human body is from the consumption of fish. The more fish the participant of this study consumed, the more PFAS and PFAS type compounds showed up in their bodies. When I first heard of this, I immediately thought of mercury and how you can avoid mercury getting into your body from fish by not eating large fish in general, avoiding carnivorous fish, that is, like tuna, sharks, etc., and fish from high mercury areas, simply in the Mediterranean Ocean, San Francisco Bay, and not eating bottom dwellers fish near large cities. That would probably but we'd be talking about shrimp there. But what of avoiding PFAS when choosing what kinds of fish to eat? Mercury has a gas phase and can travel around the world for years before finally settling out of the atmosphere and ending up in a body of water somewhere. PFAS do the same through the potential emissions from industry and evaporation from firefighting foam. However, a European study conducted 17 years ago had ample demonstration that PFAS were 10 times higher in lakes than in rainwater in several different countries. Through many years of research on mercury contamination and toxicity, I have concluded that global mercury levels in fish can be traced to the increase in artesian mining for gold. This all goes back to what took place in California in the 1800s when they started the gold rush there. A way that they found gold was simply as they had to break it off. And a lot of times they would use mercury to do this, to eliminate the byproducts that are what stuck to the gold and had gold itself be separated. So this particular mining used mercury for amalgamations in many different countries, such as Brazil, and with the current global gold rush, this is the biggest mercury input into the environment. The second biggest is the combustion of coal. Think China. Concurrently, mercury levels in seafood are always higher next to large cities due to contamination of local waterways from landfill runoff. Mercury also gets into waterways from industry. Again, think China again, because China is very loose on the whole idea of this. They're just in it for the money, making as many pieces as quickly as they can. And sometimes from dental offices, it has been estimated that only about 20% of the mercury used in mercury amalgams fillings ends up in people's mouths. In addition to this, many people are having their mercury amalgams removed from their teeth. And some of the mercury ends up contaminating local bodies of water. The biggest difference between mercury and PFAS is that mercury readily evaporates as a gas under average environmental pressure and temperature. PFAS doesn't do that. According to another article published in Environmental Research 2019, it was determined that the fillet or muscle portion of fish contains 1/3 to 2/3 less PFAS than the whole fish. Like mercury, larger and more carnivorous fish contain greater concentrations of PFAS by a factor of about 6 times. As expected, fish samples in waters of rivers and bays with higher concentration of PFAS in the water that is traced back to local sources, you see, had higher concentrations of PFAS in the fish samples. A separate study from the Great Lakes area of the U.S. showed the same trend with larger fish feeding higher on the food chain, you see. They eat smaller fish and they keep eating that and they pull that into their body. Having higher levels of PFAS in Europe, the same correlation was found with fish sampled near the industry using PFAS, resulting in higher concentrations of PFAS in the tissue sample. A monumental study in 2013 discovered a typical PFAS, that is PFAS, blood level of 28.2 parts per billion in 25,000 people located in West Virginia and Ohio. Studies cited who were exposed to PFAS contamination from a local DuPont processing plant that was releasing PFAS into the environment. The typical PFAS in the blood of U.S. citizens was determined to be 3.9 parts per billion. That is 7 times less than what they were saying here. Local public water supplies at the study site averaged 1.5 parts per billion, while surprising well water samples ranged up to, guess what? Far worse, 22.1 parts per billion. So it's going into soil and it goes into the water, underground aquifers underneath the earth, you see. Scientists conclude that drinking water contaminated with PFAS was limited to a variety of cancers, in particular kidney cancer. Kidneys are one of the main organs responsible for the removal of PFAS from the human body. Research on PFAS toxicity has shown that these chemicals cause disruptions in the level of cholesterol in the blood, changes to thyroid functions, deterioration of kidney and liver tissue, distortion of calcium levels, and platelet membrane function, increasing cardiovascular disease, and an increase in the rate of developing certain types of cancer. Correlation among toxins in the literature are constant. Examples include the fact that heavy metals, glyphosate, graphene oxide, and PFAS attach to proteins and are usually circulated around the human body until they find the tissue they have the greatest affinity for. And all of these toxins cross the blood. That's right, you hear it again. All of these toxins cross the blood-brain barrier, and all of these toxins accumulate in the hippocampus area of the brain, causing Alzheimer's disease. 1 out of 3 people over the age of 80 will die from Alzheimer's disease currently, and this figure is expected to increase to 2 out of 3 in the next 20 years. The environmental remediation, they would say, or maybe should say remedy, the carbon-fluoride bond in PFAS has been described as one of the strongest single bonds in nature, lasting, quote, almost forever, end quote. Environmental remediation of PFAS is not feasible at this point in time, as breaking the carbon/fluorine bond in these compounds is difficult, and the end product of this breakdown is fluorine, which tends to be even more toxic. It was reported in a Science article in 2020 that the anaerobic, that is being without air, bacteria are capable of breaking the carbon-fluorine bonds, but the potential of bacterial communities to be used in environmental remediations has not been fully investigated. In other words, they don't really know yet. Detox in the human body. Published a scientific paper states that forever chemicals of PFAS have been found in over 97% of people tested for them. In other words, there are very few people who don't have this in their body. And that depends on what type of test they were doing. He doesn't go into that in a minute. And due to the recalcitrating nature of these compounds, it is important to avoid ingesting them. The first rate of detox is always first eliminate the intake of all toxins. This would obviously include avoidance of processed foods and certain kind of fish, personal products that contain PFAS, and engaging in the use of activated carbon/ion exchange and reverse osmosis filters to treat drinking water, which removes so many other toxins as well. Reverse osmosis can remove nearly all of the PFAS from water, while good quality carbon filters changed regularly will remove about 3/4 of the PFAS in water, according to a study conducted by Duke University, published in 2019. So this study's been 6 years ago. Although information on detoxing from PFAS is lacking, according to the available literature, well, most PFAS can be removed through urine and the gastrointestinal tract. About 20% of all PFAS and associated compounds, such as, let's see if I can get this to work right here, as perfluorobutadiene acid are excreted through the urine, while it has been stated to some sources that to get rid of about half of the total amount of PFAS from your body, it will take about 4 years. A study published in 2010 on perfluorinated compounds, which are similar to PFAS, determined that gastrointestinal elimination was likely a viable route with the addition of oral administration of cholestyramine. So that's CHOLESTYRAMINE, which is categorized as a bile acid sequoiatin. In other words, a drug that prevents the reabsorption of bile in the human body. This drug is often prescribed for the reduction of cholesterol, and I do not advise using it for a long period of time unless there is a dire need to reduce PFAS in the blood due to acute toxicity. Oral administrations of zeolite and chlorella, as well as sweat therapy, is ineffective for PFAS removal, according to published research. So I've heard of zeolite myself. I've heard of chlorella also, as well as sweat therapy. Most would say sweat therapy would come out of your skin. Actually, your skin itself is the largest organ of your body. There are no clear indications that increased glutathione levels in the human body will directly result in an increase in the appreciation of PFAS. Because the primary area of accumulation of PFAS in the human body is in the lungs. It may be difficult to remove PFAS once they have attached to lung tissue, and research is needed to determine this. Conclusion: another depopulation strategy. It seems the more research I conduct, the more the story comes up the same, like glyphosate, PFAS easily cross the placenta barrier and cause problems with fatal developments. Experimental studies on mammals have shown that these chemical compounds cause damage to developing neural tissue in what we call embryos, resulting in disturbance of neurotransmitter transfer between nerve cells. In addition to this, PFAS causes problems with testicle development and promote endocrine disruption, leading to infertility. The immune system functions also negatively affected. This, of course, would likely increase complications associated with vaccines and coronavirus, as information is coming out now that vaccines, pregnant women are giving birth to what we call deformed babies, some of which are just plain evil looking. Moreover, breast milk samples have shown traces of PFAS in nearly all countries of the world. PFAS accumulated predominantly in the lungs, and since the lungs are the main target for graphene oxide accumulation, which is a major component of COVID, vaccines. The negative symptom effect is obvious. The biggest immediately health problem with corona vaccines are blood clots, creating strokes and pulmonary edema, causing suffocation. The long-term health problems will be allergies and autoimmune disorders as the body reacts to spike proteins attached to cell membranes. Autoimmunity disorders in the human body are amplified by the combination of toxins like PFAS, spike proteins, and graphene oxide, which will result in an increase in the likelihood of developing serious life-threatening chronic disease due to overwhelming inflammation. And then he gives the sources for further release. Reading here, he has these particular authors. A gentleman, I don't know if it's a gentleman, but it's C-O-R-R-A, Bonato, B-O-N-A-T-O, Bella, B-E-L-L-I-O, M-G-U-I-D-O-L-I-N. And then also here, L, must be the first name, L-T-A-L-L-A-N-D-I-N-I, also Irato, I-R-A-T-O, P and Santovito, that is S-A-N-T-O-V-I-T-O, and that's the only sources it has. PFAS, environmental pollution and anoxic responses, an overview of the impact on human field, International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health. This was done in a journal here, 17/21, 8020. It does give a doi.org say here, but I won't go into that much more. He continues to give more articles here from the Environmental Science and Technological Letters based on February 5th, 2019. He has another person here, Domingo, J.L., NATO, M, per, P-E-R, and polyfluoroalkyl substance, PFAS, in food and human dietary intake. A review of the recent scientific literature, J, A-G-R-I-C, Food, Chemical, C-H-E-M, Chem, 2017, January 25th. And then also Fair, P-A, Wolf, B, White, N-D, Arno, A-R-N-O-T-T-S-A, Cannon, K-A-N-N-A-N-K, K-A-R-T-H-I-K-R-A. Again, with PFAS, inedible fish species from Charleston Harbor, that is in tributaries, that is in South Carolina, United States. Exposure and risk assessment, environmental RES 2019, April 17. It's from basically page 266 to 277. DOI 10.1016. Let's see if there's anything else here. These are basically, I won't go into much more. These are just basically sources. You can go to theguardian.com under environmental-2021, September 14, forever chemicals, the hidden threat from the PFAS toxics on your show. If you're interested in more articles here, just simply download the book. It's, again, you can get this from Kindle. You cannot get this information in a book form, as far as I know of. PFAS, the secret toxins in your body, YouTube. And he has the deal here also on the YouTube channel. There's also a video also how, quote, forever chemicals, end quote, polluted American water. That's also on a YouTube channel. And that is it. So thank you for being here again. This is from Bill McGraw, his book here, which is actually available on Kindle through Amazon. So it's public info, public domain information, and to release this to others to be aware of what's really going on and why you're actually sick. So again, the title simply called is Forever Chemicals Essential Info. So thank you for being here. Again, this will be shared with my channel, simply discerning what is true, and also shared on to others. Again, this title is simply called Forever Chemicals Essential Information by Bill McGraw. Have a good day. Take care.